For the first bill, I got an email from Representative Graham. He is not going to be able to introduce the bill because he's got a physician's appointment at 9 o'clock. So we'll make that work as well. So are we set to go?
We are all set, Senator.
Okay. Good morning and welcome. I am Senator Sharon Carson from District 14. Today, we will be holding a meeting of the Senate Committee on Executive Departments and Administration. Before we get started, I'll read through a checklist to ensure that the meeting that we are holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As the chair of Senate Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that 1, we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and selected legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom or YouTube and via phone by following the directions and links provided on the General Court website. 2, we have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar. 3, we are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us or call area code 603-271-6931. 4, in the event the public is unable to access the meeting, it will be adjourned and rescheduled. 5, please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. And 6, finally, let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, also state where they are and if anyone else is in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I will call the roll. Senator Reagan?
In my office by myself.
Senator Prentice?
Good morning. In my living room by myself. My husband is home.
Okay, thank you. And Senator Carson, I am at my home in Londonderry and my daughter is in the adjacent room and 2 puppies that are feeling the springtime. So they're doing a little bit of doggy fighting or play fighting. So that's what we have this morning. Senator Ricciardi had a meeting scheduled at 9 o'clock and Senator Kavanaugh is over in the House introducing a bill. So just as soon as they're finished, they will be jumping on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. We're going to open the public hearing on House Bill 377. The prime sponsor, Representative Graham, had a doctor's appointment this morning at 9 o'clock. So I will go ahead and introduce the bill to the committee. Good morning. My name is Sharon Carson, and I have the pleasure of representing Senate District 14, comprising the towns of Londonderry, Hudson, and Auburn. Okay, maybe this isn't the right. Nope, I'm sorry. I've got the right bill in front of me. Yes, I do. So this morning, we are going to hear House Bill 117. And this bill specifies the circumstances for the use of force at New Hampshire National Guard facilities. This bill is a request of the Adjutant General. Representative Graham also wanted me to let the committee know that this was a bill that was filed last year and passed by both the House and Senate and was included in one of the omnibus bills that was vetoed by the governor. So that being said, I will conclude my testimony and I will not take any questions. I am going to call Warren Perry.
Senator Carson, I don't see Warren Perry on my Zoom list. Doesn't look like he's here yet.
Okay, because I have him on my list to testify on 117. Okay, is Kevin Grady there?
He is.
Okay, why don't we speak to Mr. Grady?
Mr. Grady, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Senator Carson, distinguished members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kevin Grady. I'm a 22-year resident of Hooksett, New Hampshire, and that's after spending 25 years in our Air Force. Today, I'm here representing the 20-member organization of the State Veterans Advisory Committee, a committee that we were privileged to have Senator Carson sit on our committee for a while, so she's very familiar with what we do. But those of you who are not familiar with what we do, one of the things that our operation works on besides supporting veterans is we do look at the bills coming before the Senate and the House. And then the ones that have veteran impact, we establish a position, then and I go and tell you what that position is. If you want to keep score at home, the House bill from last year was 1420 that was about this bill, and it passed unanimously out of committee in the House and then in the Senate as well. And then it was attached to House Bill 1234 with 62 of its closest friends. And then the governor did veto it last July. I want to tell you just 30 seconds about the bill. The bill really doesn't have anything to do with things like gun legislation or our force protection policy. The Adjutant General sets that policy, and they're not going to really share that with anybody else because it's confidential, it's classified. What this bill does is it aligns the language, makes a couple of minor changes to align the language in our state RSAs with the federal guidance. And as such, our State Veterans Advisory Committee unanimously supports this bill, as we did the last time that it came through. And one of the things that we're seeing nationwide really is the total integration of our active forces and our Guard and Reserve forces now are such that the Guard and the Reserve used to be a nice to have, and now they're a must have really for all the missions that the Department of Defense does. And so wherever we can get everybody training to the same level and playing from the same, singing from the same sheet of music, that's so much the better for us. So we unanimously support this bill, and that concludes my testimony, unless there are any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Mr. Grady. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Is Mr. Perry in? Has he jumped on?
I don't see Mr. Perry, unfortunately.
Okay, are there other folks in the waiting room who would like to testify on this bill?
I don't see anyone with their hand raised, Senator Carson.
Okay, all right, so I will go ahead and close the public hearing on House Bill 117. We have about a little over 5 minutes till our next bill, so I will go ahead and put the committee in recess for 5 minutes.
Hi, Senator Kavanaugh. We're just recessed until the next bill at 9:15.
Oh, well, that was quick then, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, we're quick, Kevin, you know that.
You are.
Yeah, it wasn't, we had it before. We had it last year about the National Guard. So,
Oh, yeah,
and
117.
and just
Good.
aligning the statutes. So,
Okay, good.
yeah, it's just, I don't, and I see John is on, I don't see that we're gonna exec anything today, just because Senator Prentice is here, but Senator Ricciardi isn't.
Okay.
So before we start up, Kevin, I'm going to announce that you've joined us.
Okay.
Excuse me, and
Yep.
I just need you to identify where you are. I know where you are.
No, that's all right. And sorry I was late, but I had a 9 o'clock to present
That's
my bid
okay.
to the house. So.
It's that time of the year. We forget about that,
Right.
that,
At least we're not running between buildings this year. Right?
Well, I'm seriously, I'm waiting for the house calendar to come out and to try to get some sort of an idea about how many bills we're going to get in ED&A, because it looks like we have until June, May 11th or 12th for the fiscal notes, and June 3rd to have all of our bills out and on the floor. So if we can continue to just work through April, and that means hopefully we don't need to meet in May. So that I would love that, believe me.
Yeah, that would be great. That
Yeah.
would be great.
Because hopefully all these restrictions are really going to start being lifted, and we're going to get back to normal as much as
Yeah,
we
especially
can.
with the vaccine. I signed up this Friday. I'm going for my shot. So
Oh, okay.
the more people that go, I think the better.
Now, do you know if you're getting the 1 shot or the 2?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. It just gave me the time and the location, and then it doesn't give specifics. I'm hoping it's the 1, but I don't know.
Yeah. Do you have to go? Are you in Manchester or to get the shot, or do you have to go down to Salem?
I'm going to Concord, actually.
Oh, you're going to Concord. Okay.
Yeah, they had one at the Police Standards and Training Facility, I think they said.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I've got to do. It makes you kind of feel
That was
old.
legislators.
I'm sorry, John?
That was for legislators and staff.
Yeah, legislators
Ah.
and staff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just haven't had time to do that. I got the letter in the mail saying that I was eligible now to go and get the shot. So I'm like, okay, I'll get around to it.
Yeah, if you can do that. That was so quick. It took, probably minutes just to get online and sign up. It was really quick and easy.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing from constituents, that they've had no difficulty whatsoever in signing up. The state system was easy to negotiate. I think that first day it was a little hectic, but now that those kinks have worked themselves out and they've addressed the issues, it seems like people are just going, getting the shot. And kind of reminds me being in the service where you line up and you have to roll your sleeve up and they just go one right down the line. So it's okay. It's kind of interesting, but I think it's working very well. So
Yeah, it seems to be.
yeah. Okay. Oh, this is okay. All right, let me do this. And we're gonna Okay, seeing that it is 9:15, I'm going to open the public hearing on House Bill 377. I don't see that the prime sponsor has signed in. Is Representative Connors here?
I do see her hand raised. Representative Connors, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, we can. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today. My name is Erica Connors. I represent Hillsborough 15, Manchester's Ward 8. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for allowing me to come before you today. I'm here to introduce House Bill 377, an act relative to the authority of the State Fire Marshal to grant an exemption from fire code requirements for recovery houses. This fall, I chaired the committee to study state and municipal authority governing recovery housing. The committee recommended that legislation be submitted to mirror the amended version of HB 311 from the previous session that easily passed the House but died as part of a large omnibus bill at the end of the session. The committee also recommended that the legislation include a clear definition for recovery housing. That is what HB 377 does. A recovery house or sober living home offers those in recovery from substance abuse a bridge between inpatient rehab to living on their own. In New Hampshire, we have some great facilities working to aid those in recovery, providing rules, structure, requiring ongoing therapy, and a drug-free environment. They are a crucial piece in the road to recovery. New Hampshire needs recovery homes to continue to operate in our communities and to help people to succeed in recovery. In no way is this bill designed to reduce or eliminate true recovery or sober living homes, which are valuable and necessary to our communities. In Manchester and other municipalities, however, we have found that there are others that are simply taking advantage of those in recovery. There are those who are using the designation recovery house or sober living home to get around life safety codes associated with hotels, apartments, boarding and rooming houses, and such for greater profits. Firefighters are responding to overdoses at these facilities at high rates, and upon entering are finding drugs and alcohol everywhere. They're finding 4 people to a basement room with no second point of egress, non-working smoke detectors, and other major hazards that are not only hazardous for the residents, but also for the firefighters and our first responders. These bad actors are operating businesses with no goal in aiding in recovery. They're using the designation to circumvent life safety codes and taking advantage of a population at risk. Those in recovery from substance abuse are a protected population under the Federal American with Disabilities Act, but right now they are not being protected. This bill does not interfere with that act, as it is a permissive piece of legislation allowing true recovery homes to operate under less stringent regulations than boarding or rooming houses. This is necessary as there is a shortage of true recovery homes in New Hampshire, and we need to help these facilities find a path to safely operate. I am aware that great work is being done on voluntary certifications, but it is not going to stop others from using the name to solve life safety issues. This bill defines recovery housing so that those using the title of recovery house or sober living home in order to circumvent life safety codes and make a profit at the expense and the health and safety of its residents can easily be detected and determined to not be a recovery home. I ask that you vote OTP on this bill to help protect those in recovery and give them a true chance at recovery, as well as to protect our firefighters and first responders who are currently finding themselves in dangerous situations due to a lack of clarification on what recovery housing truly is. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Representative. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Reagan, then Senator Kavanaugh.
So a question I participated in discussions of sober homes years ago. My question is, it was reported to me that in the bill that the square footage required is 4 times the federal requirement for square footage. Could you explain the reasoning behind that?
Sure, I'm not sure what the exact numbers are for the federal code right now. Those numbers in this bill came directly from the state fire marshal, and they were his request.
Is he available to answer this question?
Senator Reagan, we have 3 individuals, including Paul Parisi from the Fire Marshal's office, to answer that question.
Okay.
Okay, Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Representative Connors. It's good to see you. My question is really a comment or question, I guess, is just, I know, we've had a lot of problems with these in Manchester, these homes, the bad actors that you said. And we've had some in residential neighborhoods where the next thing they pop up and there's 16 adults living in one home and they're trying to claim that they're a family in recovery. will this in any way give us another tool to shut those bad actors down in a situation like that, that we can really promote the people that are trying to help people in recovery and really go after and maybe shut down these homes that are really just trying to take advantage of people?
Well, the idea here is not to affect zoning in any way and make changes there, but it is to look at what really is a sober living home and to take places that are housing, as you said, 15, 16 people who are not related, not working in recovery, that are just using that designation as recovery home to for a profit. It's to try to close those places down, but help the places that are really trying to aid those in recovery.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Representative, I have a question. You mentioned that there was a study committee. Is there a final report from that study committee?
There is. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think we can get that to you. It was a study committee through the Senate. Senator D'Alessandro was on that committee as well.
Okay, if you could provide a copy of that report to Mr. Lapine, who's our committee secretary, he will make sure that the committee members get a copy of that report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for Representative Connors? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you very much.
Next, we will call Representative Carol Mcguire.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Carol Mcguire, representing Merrimack District 29, that is Allenstown, Epsom, and Pittsfield. And I'm the chair of the House ED&A committee, which passed this bill. From our point of view, the specifications of what safety requirements are necessary in a recovery house are to deal with the fact that a large number of the housing stock in New Hampshire is old and does not have sprinklers. So to be exempted from the building code and life safety code requirement of sprinklers in this sort of house, there needs to be some sort of framework that will provide safety. The fire marshal has the authority to grant waivers on a one-by-one basis, but he wanted to have it in statute what the essential minimum requirements for running some sort of congregate housing in a building without sprinklers would be. And that's what this bill is. It describes what you have to do in order to safely run essentially some sort of congregate housing when you don't have sprinklers and you don't have the resources to put in sprinklers. Sprinklers are not required in 1 or 2 family homes, but anything larger they are. So all the old houses in our cities and towns don't have sprinklers, and if you're going to use them for a recovery house, you need to take some special efforts to make them safe for the residents and the firefighters. And the House ED&A committee was convinced that this bill defines the minimum safety requirements. There are other, we'd love to have other things, but this establishes a sensible minimum, and we grant the fire marshal the authority to do it on a relatively routine basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Representative. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, Senator Reagan has a question.
Carol, do you have the information on the square footage requirement?
No, that never came up.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Senator Prentice.
Just quickly, thank you, Madam Chair. Will there need to be rules written for the waiver process?
There are already rules for a waiver process.
Okay.
This simply says that will be a standard waiver rather than a unique one. Makes it easier for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Representative Mcguire. Perfect.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Chair Mcguire, and I'll be speaking with you in probably about an hour and a half. Okay, next we have Paul Parisi. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Senate ED&A. My name is Paul Parisi, and it is my privilege to serve as the State Fire Marshal. And I'm here this morning in support of House Bill 377. As many of you are aware, we have been working together with local fire departments, particularly the Manchester Fire Department, as well as numerous stakeholders in the recovery community, trying to find a solution to the issue surrounding balancing fire and life safety with reasonable, inexpensive access to recovery residences. It's not lost on those of us in the fire service that the number of overdose deaths in New Hampshire far exceed the number of fire deaths. And while we're anxious to help reduce the number of overdose deaths, we certainly don't want to tip the scales the other way. Certainly, so we urge caution with those involved with this issue to ensure that we are looking at that safety aspect. But we believe what this bill does is strike a balance between the fire suppression provisions that are required by the state fire code and the financial hardships those requirements could create for sober living residences. Under the state fire code currently, sober living residences are typically recognized as rooming and lodging houses, which require a more robust and therefore more expensive fire suppression system. House Bill 377 gives recovery residences an avenue to be exempted from Chapter 26 of the Life Safety Code, which is a portion of the state fire code that pertains to lodging and rooming houses. If a sober living residence is complying with the state fire code in general, and they are complying with items A through N of House Bill 377, then they can seek an exemption from the greater fire suppression requirements that ordinarily would apply to them. This bill creates a mechanism for recovery residences to demonstrate that they have sufficient fire safety measures, which reassures the firefighting community, while granting an exemption to portions of Chapter 26 from the fire code, which makes it more viable for the sober living residences to occupy the building. The New Hampshire State Fire Marshal's Office supports this bill. It standardizes the way our state handles the recovery residences from a fire safety perspective. It may not reduce the number of not in my backyard issues that arise because the law will be, it may reduce the number of not in my backyard issues that arise because the law will be clear statewide and it won't be local to local. It strikes a reasonable balance between life, safety, and access to recovery residences, and it leverages existing infrastructure, specifically NH Core, the New Hampshire Coalition of Recovery Residences, and our current variance process that is outlined in Administrative Rule Safe C 6000. And finally, it shines a bright light on the extent of compromise that we're willing to give. And it allows the general court, the people's representatives, an opportunity to decide if it's appropriate for the state fire marshal to be issuing an exemption under these broad conditions. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to testify and for your consideration. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I'd certainly be happy to start with Senator Reagan's question if that pleases the chair. Madam.
Yes, please, please, Chief, if you could answer Senator Reagan's question.
I certainly will. So I believe, Senator Reagan, the question was that you were questioning the 50 square feet versus 200 square feet. One was a requirement in the checklist from NH Core, and one was the requirement that we're proposing in 377. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I believe that the checklist in the NH Core document is 50 square feet per sleeping room. So in other words, the room itself had to be 50 square feet per person that was sleeping in that bedroom. The requirement in the statute talks in terms of 200 square feet gross per dwelling unit per person. So the core requirement is specific to the bedroom. Our requirement is specific to the dwelling unit itself.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Senator Kavanaugh.
Fire Marshal Parisi, thank you, Madam Chair, and Fire Marshal Parisi. It's good hearing from you, and hopefully we get to see you this summer down at the Dog Days golf tournament this year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So my question is this: I know you've been working very closely with Chief Goonan from Manchester Fire, and before the shutdown, I'll tell you that was my biggest issue I was getting out of Manchester, these sober homes that are popping up. And I just want to be able to say, I asked and talked about this, but a lot of these were coming into residential neighborhoods. I talked to Representative Connors about, and there's multiple adults living there all of a sudden. And this will, we did address it in another bill, I think, where they can go in, the fire department or the fire marshal can go in and address that if they're saying they're a family in recovery, is a lot of the terms we were hearing from these bad actors. And I just want to make sure we're not going to be going in and saying, okay, if we're getting complaints from one or two or multiple different buildings, that we're not going in to make it easier on these ones that are really taking advantage of people in recovery. Is that correct? How you feel it's going to be worked at as well?
Well, thank you for the question, Senator, and I do believe that to be 100% accurate. I think that what this will do is it will legitimize the folks that are doing the right thing and trying to operate recovery residences to help folks, and it will weed out those who are doing that are the bad actors, as you portray it, and I believe that to be true. And unfortunately, because as you all know, we have been struggling with this for a number of years now, and it has left fire chiefs in a lurch relative to how do we enforce this? Do we enforce this? Statute, there's going to be language soon, and we've kind of told chiefs to just pump the brakes and let's see if we can get a statewide solution. So, we were so close last year, and I really hope that this year we can get it across the goal line so that we can once and for all put this issue to bed, and we'll have a statewide solution so that all fire chiefs can, look at this in the same way. And so we don't want folks going from, kind of code shopping town to town. We want there to be a statewide solution.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Chief. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator.
Are there any further questions for the chief? Chief, I have a couple of questions. Are any of these buildings going to be grandfathered, the existing buildings?
Thank you for the question, Senator. No. I think that if a fire chief was to come across or was to be made aware of a recovery residence in his community, once this statute is enacted, then they would ask that they come into compliance with the current, with what the statute requires. So, and obviously we would work with those folks, even if they had been operating for a number of, months or years, we would certainly work with them to get them to come into compliance. We typically call that a corrective action plan, and we encourage fire departments to use corrective action plans to bring folks into compliance as opposed to using enforcement actions. We typically only use those as a last resort.
Okay, and my other question is, how long does an existing sober living house have, how long do they have to come up to code?
So, in kind of in the same vein as that corrective action plan, I'll give you the lawyer answer. It depends, right? Depending on how many issues there are and what the extent of money that they have to spend and how serious the problems are. If we were to go into a recovery residence and they didn't have the proper number of egresses and they didn't have smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, and their heating plant hadn't been inspected in 5 years, those are definitely serious issues that we would contemplate, maybe even temporarily closing them if we had to, but certainly we would put them on a very tight corrective action plan. Now, if it was something that perhaps is less egregious, such as they need to, come up with an evacuation plan, or they need to post that they can't smoke within 10 feet, or things like that, we can certainly give them time for if needed. Barriers, some of these call for 1 hour fire barriers or fire doors. We've given folks time to install those. If their windows weren't quite large enough, but they needed to get the larger windows, but it was going to be a construction project, we would give them some time to do that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for Chief Parisi? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We also have two other individuals, Max Schultz and Sean Toomey from the State Fire Marshal's office. Can we just bring them on together and see if they have any additional information they'd like to give us?
Senator Carson, I do see Mr. Toomey, which he can unmute himself, but I don't see, it doesn't look like Max is on Zoom.
Okay. Good morning, Sean. Do you have any?
Good morning.
Do you have any other information you'd like us to know?
No, I think it was covered pretty well. I worked on this for a while with the Marshal, and I think this is a great balance between the fire suppression and the heavier fire protection requirements that typically are seen in lodging and rooming. And I think it strikes a chord between what we would see as our single family homes versus the more strict requirements of lodging and rooming. And I think it's a good compromise for everyone involved to be able to deliver some safe recovery residences across the state in a consistent playing field, if you would, versus having the issues from town to town, community to community. So, if any questions, I'm here to help the Marshal with any fine-tuned technical questions, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean. I believe Senator Prentice has a question. Oh, no, you don't. Okay. Nope.
I was just saying hi to Sean.
Okay. So thank you, Sean, for your testimony this morning. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Okay, next I'm going to call Kim Bach.
Ms. Bach, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good morning, Senator Carson and members of the committee. Thank you for considering this. Thank you for giving us a chance to state our position. NH Corps is the organization that's been appointed by the state to certify that recovery houses on a voluntary basis meet nationally accepted standards. We have currently almost 50 houses in New Hampshire across the state that meet those standards, and we're always working on a few more. We oppose this bill because for three reasons. One, we find it not to be necessary. Right now, the state fire marshal already has legislatively the ability to give such a variance from the requirements. And that's in RSA 153(5) section 4. That particular law, it applies to all buildings, structures, or equipment. It's applied evenly across the board. That's our second issue that we have with this particular piece of legislation. This is discriminatory on its face because it only carves out recovery residences. It doesn't apply to any other similarly situated homes. RSA 153(5)(4) does apply to everybody equally. HB 377 does not. It only applies to recovery homes. Doesn't apply to congregate houses. It doesn't apply to anything else that's similar. The third problem that we have with this particular bill is that it is oppressive to recovery housing. We all know there's not enough housing in New Hampshire, not for anybody. There's certainly not enough housing for people that are in recovery. If they enter treatment and then they enter a recovery house, they have a 60% greater chance of achieving long-term recovery, being more than 12 months. That takes a huge weight off of our societal cost in so many different ways. If they can establish long-term recovery, then we'll decrease the relapse rates that lead to death. We'll also decrease the relapse rates that lead to re-entry into treatment at another time. Decreases the cost on society of the medical treatments. It decreases crime and it decreases homelessness. HB 377 mandates an additional cost of over $15,000 to every single recovery residence. The RSA 153(5)(4) allows the fire marshal to look at every individual structure and structure the plan that works for that building. The long list of items in HB 377 aren't negotiable at all. So they would be applied to every single house. And as I said, that's an additional cost of at least $15,000. realize that recovery residences aren't out there to make a huge profit. They are not, nobody is getting really rich off running these things. In fact, during the beginning parts of COVID, we saw 7 houses close because of the problems everybody was facing with the economy and how the economy dipped in the beginning of COVID. 7 houses closed. They really run right close to the edge on what they can do for operations or not. For those reasons, we would oppose HB 377.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Ms. Bach. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, next, let's go to Elliott Berry.
Mr. Berry, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm good now, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Elliot Berry. I'm the Director of Housing Justice at New Hampshire Legal Assistance, and I've been practicing housing law for over 40 years. I've stated that I'm opposed to the legislation. I certainly am not opposed to what people are trying to do. I understand the problem posed by substandard sober houses, and I in no way do I want to fight with the state fire marshal or the Manchester Fire Department. The problem with House Bill 377 is it doesn't really solve the problem. A number of the proponents have talked about the fact that the real problem is all these substandard recovery houses or sober homes. The thing is, the bill only applies to those homes that have gone through the process of obtaining certification. So almost by definition, the only ones to whom this is going to be applied are the responsible people who are promoting or sponsoring recovery housing. The other problem is that it will inevitably lead to litigation, which I believe the state will lose. I don't have a crystal ball, but here's the problem. We have a fair housing project at New Hampshire Legal Assistance, the purpose of which is to enforce the Federal Fair Housing Act. One of the key provisions is that you can't discriminate on the basis of disability. Most, if not all, applications for an exemption are judged under the same standard, which is, does the exemption constitute a hazard to the public welfare and safety? HB 377 is explicitly and exclusively aimed at one kind of disability, and those are people who are in recovery from addiction. No other type of housing is required to meet those specific exemptions. So on the face of the bill itself, it creates 2 classes of applicant, and I think it's going to violate the Fair Housing Act. Maybe you can meet the state could meet the burden of justification, but I really doubt it. The purpose of fire and life safety codes are to ensure the safety of buildings, not to regulate the kinds of people who can occupy those buildings. Again, I understand it, and maybe the way to go, or the motivation here, but maybe the way to go about it is to have a specific set of requirements for and criteria for anyone who seeks an exemption under the current state law. But this one that treats housing, recovery housing, so fundamentally different from any other applicant for an exemption, I just think is going to be struck down by a court. And I don't think you want to see that happen. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Mr. Berry. Senator Kavanaugh has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Berry, for taking my question. You know, I just kind of disagree with that, I think, because we've had a lot of bad actors and a lot of things that are happening in Manchester. Like I said earlier, my phone was blowing up before the shutdown. This is the biggest issue going on. And the frustration from the fire department was saying they go into these homes, they have too many people living there. They're all claiming their family in recovery. And they didn't have any way to shut them down. And you're going after the bad actors. And if they don't intend to be bad actors, then let's get them in a place where they can help people recover. So I guess my question is how, I really feel like this is another tool for the fire departments to go in and to close down the bad actors by not giving them the exemption or helping the good programs that are helping people recover. And if you could just touch on that, because I think this helps them a lot. And I could go on and on about stories we have where we have some people in the bad actors that the police are going, the fire are going there because people have OD'd on the front lawn. And right across the street, there's a family with 4 young kids living there. And it's just, it's a serious problem. And I think this really goes a ways to help us prevent these bad actors in really going in with cash and buying up these homes, and especially in a real estate market like we're in, just to bring in these multiple adults and saying it's a family in recovery. So if you could touch on that, I guess, to see if that's, sorry to ramble on there, but thank you.
Sure, I really get that, Senator. I think part of the problem is, though, that by its own terms, and if you look at line 6 of the bill, it only applies to recovery houses that have been certified by the state. I'm sorry, by the New Hampshire Coalition of Recovery Residences. So by definition, those irresponsible folks are not even affected by this bill. And so under the current date, when you confront one of those, the fire marshal would say, look, here are our standards, one of the substandard ones. They'd say, here are our standards. You don't meet those standards and we're going to close you down. This bill doesn't affect in any way, as far as I can see, it doesn't affect the ability of under the current law of the fire marshal to go after substandard, dangerous, alleged recovery houses. This only applies to the ones who meet the standards. And those are not the one you're going to have a problem with. And secondly, on the technical legal problem, again, you have on its face what would be a law that treats recovery houses, certified recovery houses, different than any other kind of facility that is seeking an exemption from the state fire code.
Senator Kavanaugh, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just really feel like this bill goes after, gives leniency to the good actors to say, hey, we can give you a break to help you get away from that more expensive upgrade for the sprinkler system. And that's why I feel like it's giving leniency to them.
And Senator, quite frankly, you might be right. And maybe once the state is in a court case would be called upon to try to justify its different treatment, and maybe the court could be convinced, but I think it's going to be a battle.
Thank you for your questions, answers, I should say.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Are there any further questions for Mr. Berry? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay, next we're going to talk to Mr. Evan Draper.
Mr. Draper, if you're here, could you raise your hand? I don't see him in the Zoom call. And I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, next we'll go to Christine Wellington.
Ms. Wellington, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Senator Carson and members of the committee. I'm Christine Wellington. I'm a board member of New Hampshire Core, and I'm a retired attorney. I was the director of the Fair Housing Project at New Hampshire Legal Assistance and worked with Elliott Berry for many years. I think the executive director, Kim Bach, and Attorney Berry really touched upon most of the points that I would make. I do want to point out that we sent the committee a letter that states our position in detail. It cites some of the language from the Fair Housing Act and the intention of Congress to make it clear that people with disabilities, of which people in the recovery community belong, should have as wide of a housing choice as others. And they also recognize that over the years, and it continues to this day, that there's been numerous attempts, both well-intentioned, as we really acknowledge this bill is, to regulate congregate housing, including recovery homes. In 2016, the federal government, U.S. Department of Justice and Housing and Urban Development put out further guidance, making it explicit that recovery homes are protected by the Fair Housing Act, and really reminding people that you cannot do what this bill purports to do, single out housing for persons with disability and apply more regulation. We also talked about why having 14 different standards, sections A through N, it's from line 9 on page 1 through I think line 6 on page 2 of the proposed bill, that sets out this rigid standard that the qualified, certified, and registered homes would have to make. And as Attorney Berry said, it doesn't seem to apply to the potential bad actors. And I think Kim Baucus pointed out on earlier hearings that there's plenty of people that don't choose to be certified that aren't bad actors. But those folks that aren't certified and that aren't registered with the state DHHS registry still would have the ability to go through the normal process set out in 153:5, which I just want to point out is a very good example of a neutral law that can be applied neutrally to all housing operators within certain categories. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Ms. Wellington. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. And next we will go to Jake Berry.
Mr. Berry, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, good morning. I hope you can hear me all right.
We can.
Wonderful, excellent. Good morning, Madam Chair, honorable members of the committee. My name is Jake Berry. I'm the Vice President of Policy at New Futures. As many of you know, New Futures is a nonpartisan, nonprofit health policy and advocacy organization. We've been working for more than 20 years to address alcohol and other drug issues in our state. New Futures is not taking a formal position on this bill, but I do want to emphasize the sensitive and important nature of the issues around recovery housing. I know I don't need to tell you that access to stable housing is one of the most critical factors contributing to long-term recovery from substance use disorder, and a lack of housing facilities is one of the biggest obstacles we face as a state in our battle to overcome the ongoing addiction epidemic. I recognize that this bill is intended to ensure the safety and security of our recovery housing facilities, and certainly the safety and security of these homes and their inhabitants is paramount. That said, I think it's critical that you as a committee dig deep in your work on this bill to look into the concerns expressed today by NHCORE and ensure there are not any unintended consequences that could lead to the overregulation, financial strain, or unnecessary closure of these houses. For individuals in recovery from substance misuse, the immediate threat of fire is not the only danger they face, and the availability of recovery housing is critical to ensuring their long-term safety and helping us to overcome the addiction crisis. So we certainly appreciate the efforts around this bill, and we're happy to work with all parties involved to ensure both the immediate safety and long-term security of these houses and their inhabitants. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Mr. Berry. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. Aaron, are there any folks in the waiting room?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and close the hearing on House Bill 377. Okay, we're going to move on here. I am going to open up the public hearing on House Bill 356 and recognize the prime sponsor, Representative Long. Okay.
Representative Long, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Carson and members of the committee. I'm Representative Pat Long, representing Hillsborough District 10 within the city of Manchester. House Bill 356 was brought about by Manchester's Employees Contributory Retirement System Executive Director who retired in January. My understanding is that any change to the system must be approved by state governing body to retain its tax exemption with respect to federal tax regulations. House Bill 356 is administrative in nature. It addresses how a replacement trustee is selected if a trustee is unable or unwilling to complete an elected term of office. And it also addresses technical changes to clarify the way in which our retirement plan satisfies its obligations under federal tax law. And I believe Mr. Fleury is present and is more articulate with respect to this than I would be. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Representative Long. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you. The next speaker that I have is Representative Mcguire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Representative Long has stated everything I would. The House ED&A committee was quickly passed this technical corrections because we felt that allowing the retirement system to adopt updated versions of IRS codes by rule rather than by going to the legislature would be a significant cost savings and time and trouble too.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Representative. Are there any questions for Representative Mcguire? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. That's all I have. Aaron, are there any folks in the waiting room?
I don't see anyone with their hand raised. I do see
Okay,
Senator.
I do see Senator Kavanaugh had his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was waiting. Representative Long said that there's someone from the board, I think Mr. Fleury, if he's on there. I just had a question if he's willing to take one.
I do see Mr. Fleury. Do you want me to bring him in?
Yes, please.
Mr. Fleury, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Fleury. Before you give some testimony, Senator Kavanaugh has a question for you.
Yes, certainly. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you perfectly.
Thank you, Mr. Fleury, for taking my question. The only question I had is on page 3. It starts on line 11 and finishes on line 12. It says, under no circumstances shall a member be entitled to a refund of contributions made to the section 401H subtrust. I just, could you explain that, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. That's in the construction of how the medical subtrust has to be worded in compliance with the federal regulation. It allows for that medical subtrust to exist with the understanding that when a member makes a contribution to it, that becomes property of the city, really. It entitles the member upon retirement to collecting the subsidy. However, if they terminate employment and leave the city before retiring, they forfeit the contribution that they made. And that's it isn't the way that the retirement system might have wanted it, but in order to have that type of a program and then comply with the IRS regs, that's the way it has to be stated.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fleury, would you like to offer us some testimony on House Bill 356?
Yeah, they're really, I'll take this opportunity and thank you for inviting me. Just for the record, I am the Executive Director Emeritus. As someone pointed out, I retired at the end of January. I promised the board that I would help to see this through. I think Mr. William Shea, who is the replacement Executive Director, may also be on this hearing this morning. But let me just point out that there were two essential parts of the bill. One was that there have been occasions where an individual gets elected as a trustee, and for one reason or another, they're not able to complete their term. And there were no provisions in the statute for the board to be able to appoint someone. Many times when that would happen, it was inconvenient to hold a special election to fill that slot. And with a limited number of members on the board, each serving important roles on various committees, it was thought that there needed to be a way to address that. So if someone was only a few months into their term and for whatever reason they had to resign, that the remaining board members could appoint someone until the next regular election. So the bill corrects for that. And the other thing, as was pointed out, the Internal Revenue Service from time to time will make changes to the code requirements in order to remain a qualified plan. The importance of that is if you don't maintain your status as a qualified plan, the investment earnings of the fund become taxable. So that was something to definitely be avoided. You wanted to keep the contributions and earnings of the plan within the city. So it makes sure that if the IRS amends the plan, we didn't have to be out of compliance until we could find a sponsor, put a bill through the legislative process in order to meet our compliance needs. This allows us to do it through an administrative rule. And so that clarifies the authority to be able to do that. Our legal counsel worked in conjunction with individuals at the Internal Revenue Service in order to draft this legislation.
Hey, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Fleury. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Aaron, are there any other folks in the waiting room?
I don't see anyone else with their hand raised.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and close the public hearing on House Bill 356. And we will take up the final bill that we have this morning, which is House Bill 318. And I will call Representative McGee, who is the prime sponsor.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Carson and members of the Senate Executive Departments and Administration Committee. Thank you for having us here today to introduce the Senate to what has been referred to as the State Spider Bill, HB 318. I'm Representative Kat McGee from Hillsborough 27 Hollis, and I'm here today to introduce this bill on behalf of my constituents from the Hollis Primary School. Environmental science teacher, Mrs. Happy, first reached out to me in the fall of last year to ask me what it would take to submit a bill for a candidate for State Spider. I will admit, as deputy ranking member on House Science, Technology, and Energy, this bill took me in a new direction. As we discussed her bill, I came to learn that Mrs. Happy had created nothing short of a movement with her third graders at the Hollis Primary School. She'll explain further what that process was, but suffice it to say that she and her students, also known as Team Spider, some of whom you will hear from today, had embarked on a fascinating journey of ecological exploration and elections. That journey resulted in the nomination of the daring jumping spider, or bold jumping spider, also known as Phidippus audax, for New Hampshire State Spider. And it also led them to a unanimous 18-0 decision from the House Environment and Agricultural Committee to show them that they had made their case. Although Team Spider's candidate for the honor of State Spider is a common spider, his characteristics and unique qualities make him anything but ordinary. These students were given an assignment to research several spiders and then argue and vote for the one they thought deserved to be New Hampshire State Spider. And when I heard about the work of Team Spider, I could not help but think that they had saved the General Court, a subcommittee. Their study and the election grew to encompass the entire elementary school. It became far more than a simple assignment. They began learning how to work for something larger than their own interests, how to advocate and debate, and even how to interact with their state government during a pandemic in pursuit of their goal. The last thing I will say on behalf of the daring jumping spider is that when I researched Title I, the state and its government, Chapter 3, State Emblems, I learned a few things myself. First, we have a state insect, the ladybug, and 2 state fish, one saltwater, the striped bass, and 1 freshwater, the brook trout. We even have a state amphibian, the spotted newt. Each of these nominees was a species among many that someone cared enough about to advocate for its consideration for a state symbol. The daring jumping spider, you will learn, is no less deserving of this distinction. I will leave it to my constituents, Mrs. Happy, Chloe, Nora, Eva, and Jeffrey, to make their case before you today to see if you agree that the daring jumping spider deserves to be the state spider of New Hampshire. I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take questions, but I believe you will learn far more if I turn you over to the expert witnesses who are signed up to speak with you today.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Representative. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Representative Howard Pearl. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning, Senator Carson, Chairwoman Carson, and members of the ED&A Committee. For the record, my name is Representative Howard Pearl, representing Merrimack 26, the towns of Loudon, Bosquen, Canterbury, Northfield, and Ward 3 of Franklin. I'm going to be brief today because Representative McGee did a great job introducing the technical aspects, and I just want to say that Mrs. Happy and the students from the Hollis Primary School, I will echo her sentiments completely. They did a great job introducing this bill. I was a bit skeptical going in, but you're in for a real treat because these kids will win you over. They've done a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to weigh in as the chair of the Environment and Ag Committee and let you know that we did pass this on an 18-0, and I think you will really enjoy the presentation you're about to receive. So with that, I'm going to wrap up quickly and let you move on to the good part. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, Representative. Are there any questions from the committee? Right, seeing none, thank you very much, Representative. Next, we're going to go to Tara Happy.
Miss Happy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning. And thank you so much, members of the committee. My name is Tara Happy, and I am the environmental science teacher here at Hollis Primary School, and I teach year-round outdoor education to kindergarten through third graders here in Hollis. And this year has been a bit different, of course, but the majority of our students have been in person full-time nearly all year long. All of the teachers and kids here have been wearing our masks and carrying on with lots of learning. And today I'm here with a few of our third grade students to speak to you about the daring jumping spider. This year, as a result of an online New Hampshire fishing game workshop I attended, I created a week-long spider unit for third graders. I had found that after I had begun to learn more about spiders and the amazing things that they could do, that I was actually sincerely less afraid of them. They are not my favorite animal. So knowing that spiders are a common fear among children, I hope that with some positive education that I could do the same for my students and eliminate a fear that so many of them have. This year, the spider unit started out just as an honest effort to make kids more comfortable with spiders. But what I didn't expect was a school-wide movement to elect a New Hampshire state spider. After learning how important spiders are to our world, the students were a little shocked to learn that such an important creature that is critical to our ecosystems wasn't even recognized with a state symbol. The kids instantly declared that it wasn't fair and that even spiders deserve to be loved and appreciated. The students told me that small and scary things are still special to our world, and it was like watching a crowd unravel as they began to cheer on the underdog of a losing football game. I had to admire their determination to help out the little spiders in general, so off we went with the idea. I tossed all my other lesson plans out the window and we began to research spiders. We checked the fishing game in a local nature center just to make sure we had the important species represented, and then our election began. We had the 4 spider candidates, and there were spider speeches and some very heated spider debates that took place in our forest classroom. But after a school-wide election, a hunting spider, the daring jumping spider, won. So all I know is that I started off with the class yelling, "Ew," and by the end of the week, I had them literally lined up outside in the garden waiting for a turn to hold a tiny black spider in their bare hands. And it's just about how
that's great.
Presented. And today, our students are going to explain how and why they love this little daring jumping spider and why it represents the determination and free spirit of New Hampshire. So thank you so much. I really sincerely appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to these kiddos who are representing all of the students here today. So Chloe is going to start us off.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Happy? Seeing none, Ms. Happy, I would just like to commend you for the work that you've done. And I agree. I think it's kind of interesting to get a bunch of kids interested in spiders. I know I'd be one of those kids going, ooh. So I look forward to learning about the daring jumping spider from these students. The question I have, how would you like the students to come forward? Do you think they would be comfortable in pairs, or would they prefer to go individually or all together?
We have kind of arranged, they all have a little turn and place in line, so they can just take turns if that's okay with everybody.
Okay, so you had identified Chloe as going first. Who would be second?
Eva.
Okay, and then who else?
Nora.
And then Jeffrey.
Yes, you got it.
Okay, all right, because if they are, sequential, I want to make sure we get them in the right sequence.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, again, thank you so much, Ms. Happy, for the work you do with our state's students, and I'm sure that the parents of Hollis really appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to take Chloe, and is it Constantinian? I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but I'm sure once she comes on board, she'll let us know.
My last name is Constantian, and thank you,
Constantian.
Thank you, Chairman Carson, and the members of the Senate Executive Department Administration. Hi, my name is Chloe, and we are here from Hollis Primary School, and we are here to prove our point on why we think the daring jumping spider should be New Hampshire state spider. Our environmental science teacher, Mrs. Happy, discovered that New Hampshire does not have a state spider yet, and we think it should. Mrs. Happy talked to some state representatives, and they thought it'd be a good idea too. We spent a lot of time learning about spiders. We even went outside in the woods and gardens to look for spiders. We hunted for spiders, spider webs, and any traces of spiders we could find. We found 3 in my class, and I held one on a stick. The daring jumping spider is a hunting spider that goes out to find food. Just like people in New Hampshire, we have to go to work out to survive. We don't just sit around and wait for food, we work hard. The daring jumping spider is really small. It can capture larger than itself. Kids in New Hampshire are small, but we can do big things, like the state spider and change history. Now Eva will tell you more of the story.
Okay, thank you very much for that testimony. That was a great introduction for us to learn about the daring jumping spider. Does anyone in the committee have any questions for Chloe? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Chloe. You did a great job. Okay, next we're going to hear from Eva Constantine. Constantian. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning. Thank you, Senators. My name is Eva, and I think that the daring jumping spider should be the New Hampshire state spider, too. In my class, we went outside to a garden and looked for spiders also. Mrs. Happy, our teacher, went to every class and had them vote on which spider they wanted. Every student had the choice between 4 spiders. We got to see a slideshow of the 4 choices. Every class in the whole school voted, and the daring jumping spider had the most votes. The daring jumping spider protects our gardens and farms. It feeds on pests like the tarnished plant bug, which is one of the worst insect pests that eats crops grown in New Hampshire. The evil plant bug can destroy fruits and vegetable gardens, but the daring jumping spider protects the foods we love to eat from our local farms, even from our own gardens. The daring jumping spider is found throughout all of New Hampshire, so it can represent the entire state, not just in Hollis. This makes it fair for all of New Hampshire. Everyone at HPS is excited to see if the daring jumping spider will become the New Hampshire state spider. We picked the daring jumping spider, and we hope you will too. Now you'll hear from my friend Nora.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Great job, Eva. So next we're going to hear from Nora Lane.
Yes.
Good morning, Nora.
Good morning. Thank you, Senators. My name is Nora Lane. I am 8 years old and in 3rd grade at Hollis Primary School. One of my favorite classes is environmental science with Mrs. Happy. We spent a lot of time this school year learning about spiders, even finding some in our school gardens. My friends got to hold them. Mrs. Happy taught us about how spiders are such an important part of the wildlife in New Hampshire. New Hampshire, like most other states, lists many insects among their state symbols. These include honeybees, butterflies, dragonflies, and ladybugs. However, South Carolina is the only state to recognize a spider as the state symbol, in addition to a state insect. Interestingly, this was the result of a 3rd grader. Now, New Hampshire 3rd graders like me want to continue to build awareness of how valuable spiders are and select one type that is a good fit for our state. A lot of people I know don't like spiders. Some people think they're scary, ugly, and annoying. This year, I learned that spiders are really helpful to our environment. This is because they eat mosquitoes, flies, stink bugs, and other insects we might encounter when we spend time outside. They keep those populations balanced, which is good for our gardens and the inside of our homes. If we didn't have spiders, it would disrupt the food chain and the number of household pests could go way up. We wouldn't want that, would we? If New Hampshire has 9 state species, an official beverage, a state dog, state insect, and 9 state songs, then spiders should not be left out. Even though spiders might be small and look different from other creatures, they are really mighty, and each one has its own special talents and characteristics. For New Hampshire, a great choice is the jumping spider. They are generally friendly, enjoy spending time in the garden, and they have a superpower. They can jump 20 to 50 times their own body size. When they do this, the daring jumping spider always attaches to a web, just in case. People of New Hampshire are brave too, but still make safe choices. Of all the spiders in New Hampshire, the jumping spider is leaps and bounds above the rest. Jeffrey can tell you more about the daring jumping spider.
Okay, thank you very much, Nora. Are there any questions from the committee? Nora, I have a question for you. Eva had talked about the fact that you had gone outside and you were looking for signs of the spider. Were you able to find any?
Here we've spent a lot of time this school year learning, yes, here it says my friends got to hold them. So yes, we did get to find spiders.
So you were able to find some. That's great. I'm glad you got to, got a chance to actually see one and hold one, which is, I think, that's wonderful. That's really great. Thank you very much for your testimony, Nora. You did a great job. And finally, we're going to hear from Jeffrey. Is it Seiden?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Jeffrey.
Good morning. Thank you, senators. Good morning. Thank you, senators, for letting us to be here today to speak on behalf of our school. I think we should have a daring jumping spider as our state spider because of the following reasons. 1, it's cute and colorful, just like New Hampshire's trees in the autumn. Young daring jumping spiders have orange spots on their backs, which look like some of New Hampshire's beautiful fall leaves. 2, daring jumping spider babies leave parachutes so they can fly away and be free. Otherwise, there would be too many in one spot and they would die. And guess what? Our state motto is live free or die. 3,
that's wonderful.
3, like the people of New Hampshire, daring jumping spiders are very tough and resilient. They can survive the New Hampshire winters. They don't die like some other common garden spiders. 4, it can also help make money to benefit for New Hampshire by selling spider t-shirts, refrigerator magnets, keychains, and maybe even put it on our license plates. New Hampshire has a state vegetable, and I don't even like vegetables, so I think we should have state spider to even it out a bit. Thank you for taking our daring jumping spider bill into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I think we have a budding politician here. You did a great job. Thank you for that. I love the correlations that you've made, and you've convinced me. So again, thank you. Does the committee have any questions for Jeffrey this morning? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Jeffrey. Fabulous job. You were great. Okay.
Thank you. Mrs. Happy would like to say one more thing.
Sure.
Thanks, Vito. Nice job.
Yeah, they were great. They were absolutely great.
They are an amazing group of kids who have learned so much, and they're speaking on behalf of our entire school. I just wanted to take one more quick second to thank you guys for listening to Team Spider. This year has been quite different for these kids, and honestly, it's been really, really hard. So many things that they love have been canceled: sports, birthdays, vacations, and the worlds are so different, and the little masked faces that I teach every year in person are just struggling to make sense of it all. To me, each of these students has been like a little daring jumping spider this year. They're brave and they're determined, they're adventurous, and they carry on without giving up, even though life has been tough. And they are so bouncy and jumpy sometimes. So thank you guys all so much for your consideration of this bill.
Thank you. Listen, I've got a quick question for you.
Yes.
I've done a little reading about the daring jumping spider, and it says that they have mouth parts that are iridescent, either blue or green in color. Did you find a predominance of blue or green, or do you think it was pretty equal?
I feel like, well, in this kind of coloration that they have is mostly in the male species that want to look pretty for finding friends. So I think that there is a variety, but over time, the prettier mouthpieces win out, and you get more of that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of a mix of things.
Yeah, just reading about what they look like, just because I garden and I'm sure I've run across them. And now I have a good idea about what they look like, and I'll be on the lookout for them.
Yeah, you can definitely notice their mouthpieces. They actually, like, I know in pictures it might look unreal, but they really do have that iridescent color to them.
Wow, that is, this is just really, it's been a delight, to be honest with you. Listening to the students, you can tell that they put a lot of hard work into this, and it's always so pleasant to see children learning about not only the issue that they've come to the legislature about, but how their government works as well. So I want to thank you again for all your work with your students on this issue. And hopefully one day we'll be able to meet in person. That would be terrific.
That would be fun. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Are there any questions for Ms. Happy? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Aaron, are there any folks in the waiting room?
I don't see anyone with their hand raised.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and close the public hearing on House Bill 318. I had previously announced that we are missing a member this morning, so we are not going to exec any bills today. So I will take a motion for us to conclude our business for the day. Moved by Senator Kavanaugh, seconded by Senator Prentice. Are there any discussions on the motion to conclude business? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Senator Reagan?
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Senator Prentice?
Yes.
And Senator Carson? Yes. Thank you all for your work this morning. Really appreciate it. I think we've got an interesting mixture of bills that we heard today. And so we will see you, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be in session. So
Whole new outlook on spiders.
Yeah, that was fascinating to hear about it, but it's always such a great thing when we have children, school kids come, and they've done a lot of background work on this. And they, like they said, your first impression is kind of go, ooh, spiders. But I think they've got a newfound appreciation about being outdoors and learning about the different insects and everything else that's out there, and not all of them are bad.
Yeah, and their presentations was well done, really. They were prepared, they did a great job.
They were well prepared, they spoke well, stayed right on track of what they wanted to tell us. And I suspect that Ms. Happy had a lot to do with that. And so it's always just a nice, it's a nice thing to do because of all this other things that we do that's just so, serious. And I'm not saying this
Right.
isn't serious, but this is fun serious.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's great.
And you can tell that the kids just put a lot of effort into it. So it's just really, it's good to see. It's good to see. And it's good to see them engaging in government as well. So hopefully, they'll continue to do so and realize that, government isn't the big bad boogeyman. So,
Right.
All right, everybody, we'll see you, and I'll see Senator Prentice and Senator Kavanaugh tomorrow. And thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Cameron, for all your work today. And